When the Watergate hearings aired live back in 1973, the entire nation was galvanized, glued to the airing on 3 commercial television networks and public television. That's all that existed at the time. The January 6th committee has a lot more competition in their push to find a big audience, to try to influence public opinion with what they've found. Joining me now is Washington Post Associate Editor Bob Woodward, co-author, of course, of All the President's Men, many books since, but All the President's Men is being republished today with a new introduction by the authors, part of which I think was excerpted in Outlook this weekend in the Washington Post. So that's why I wanted to talk to you. I read that and I said, let's talk to Bob Woodward.
Thank you.
First, there's some breaking news from the Washington Post from your colleagues, Carol Leonnig, Josh Dawsey, Jackie Alemany, reporting that the president on January 6th, remember he gave the speech on the ellipse, was so eager to go with the marchers, and he did say, I'll be, going with you to the Hill, that he wanted to go with them. The Secret Service scrambled to try to create a motorcade. Obviously, it didn't happen, so we have to, this just posted on the Washington Post. So he did say, we're going to walk down to the Capitol, he told the crowd.
Another piece of the puzzle.
Another piece of the puzzle. So
yes.
Witnesses to the committee, and that's obviously part of what is going to be unveiled in these series of hearings. How hard is it going to be for them to get the public's attention, where people, frankly, are consumed by gas prices and other problems, and many of them want to move on, and at this point, Fox News, the big Fox News channel, is not going to even carry it.
But I think people are going to watch because they realize the stakes are our democracy and what happened. And I'm convinced, having spent part of my life on Donald Trump, that he and others conspired in a criminal way to overturn the election and prevent Biden from taking power legitimately. And if you get into the legal technicalities here, it sounds kind of boring, but Section 371 of the Criminal Code makes it very clear: if you work to subvert a legitimate function of government, you are committing a crime. And we have overt acts by Donald Trump going on to this day. I mean, it continues, and it is perfectly clear, as they used to say in the Nixon case.
So this is not history of an insurrection as much as it is an ongoing threat, as you see it. I want to focus on something you wrote about former President Trump in your story, in your piece with Carl Bernstein, where you call him America's first seditious president. You write in part, Donald Trump not only sought to destroy the electoral system through false claims of voter fraud and unprecedented public intimidation of state election officials, but he also then attempted to prevent the peaceful transfer of power to his duly elected successor for the first time in American history. So take a stab at that and how he compares to Nixon, the other criminal.
Well, the interesting comparison of Nixon and Trump, and I'm sure historians will be wrestling with this for decades, is they both found the soft spot in the system. Nixon, the parties, the Democratic Party decides who Nixon's going to run against in '72. Gee, he would like a weaker candidate. So he launched, supported, and financed a massive campaign of sabotage and espionage and cover-up to make sure you remember this. Absolutely. You and I are a handful of people who do, that Nixon picked his opponent, George McGovern, who was going to be weaker than Senator Muskie, who was
He destroyed Ed Muskie.
Yes, destroyed him with $250,000 of really ugly, dirty tricks. And in the end, Muskie was bewildered and said there were all these bad things that happened. It was an assault on the process of deciding who is nominated.
I mean, he even stole his shoes from outside his hotel room so that he didn't have shoes to delay events. He wouldn't show up at events and other things to interrupt the schedule.
He would go to an event, and one of the dirty tricksters working for Nixon and John Mitchell would order 200 pizzas to be sent to the event. No one was prepared for that. No one was ready to pay for it. But it was a sequence, an unending sequence of highly disruptive activities that when you take them in isolate, well, that's kind of a prank. It was no prank to Muskie. Now, what Trump did, he saw the soft spot in the electoral system and the law and the Constitution, which says on January 6th at 1 o'clock, the Vice President, President of the Senate, in this case it's Pence, will count the votes from the states. And it's the only event. There's no law. There's nothing else done than that. And so that becomes the process of saying, oh, yes, this is the next President, Biden.